Setting a good example.
Having a good example, okay. Laura?
Someone who has vision and direction and is prepared to take others along with them.
Someone with vision and direction and is prepared or wants to take others with them?
Wants to take others with them, yeah.
Wants to take others with them. Okay, anybody else?
It's got to be something about consideration for the people who are followers. So not almost a care and concern for, as almost a representing rather than commanding.
Okay, so I would say that there have been a lot of leaders in history who couldn't give a damn about their followers as long as they were following. They were still leaders, though. So you're touching on a subject that we might explore, which is what makes for a good leader. But is it a definition of leadership to give consideration to others? Or is that a definition of good leadership?
Well, I think your question needs to be more tightly framed, because leadership, but are you asking for good leadership or bad leadership?
No, I just asked for leadership.
I know. So
the next question will be, well, what makes the qualities of a good leader? But what's the definition of leadership?
Maybe there is no such thing as a bad leader. If you are a tyrant, for example, this doesn't mean that you're a leader. You don't lead by example, therefore, you're not a leader at all. Perhaps we're conflating, but somebody who basically kind of whips somebody to submission, to somebody, to being a leader. That's not fair.
I think if you're at the top of the pyramid and people are following you, I think that's means you're a leader, whether you're good, bad, or indifferent.
So you have to be always in front?
You're saying leadership is synonymous with power.
I think people who are in leadership are in a position of power, yes. Yeah.
But that power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah, it could do, but nevertheless, people in leadership, I think, are in a powerful position because other people listen to them. Am I wrong? Am I inventing stuff here? Piers, come on, chip in.
I think leadership is included in power. Leadership is a part of power, but
okay.
One can have power over people, whereas leadership is empowering people.
Okay.
Yeah, I think leadership is about setting a direction, having the authority to set that direction, have a certain amount of control to set the direction. Softer would be giving guidance. Stronger would be strong management, micromanaging.
Okay. Well, if we were to vote, my vote would be for that one, because that's a very neutral definition, but I do think it sets out most of what we would consider to be important when we're talking about leadership. So do you agree, or do you think that was way off the mark still?
Yeah, I think leadership is influencing other people.
Yeah, I agree.
Something about walking the path. So a leader is not different from a commander, and a leader kind of goes ahead. That's an example. Whereas a commander can, by force or word, can direct somebody to do something without needing it.
Okay, so let's move on. I think we've got the basis of a definition there. So I'd like to ask you, in what roles in your life you have been a leader, because I think we're all leaders at times in our lives. So what roles have you been leaders? Gordon, can you turn your mic on?
I just turned it off. I wasn't sure if you were picking me up with that background, so I literally just turned it off.
I will mute everybody, then I'll unmute you one by one if I may. because we are getting a bit of feedback. Okay, so I'm going to unmute you now, Gordon.
Okay.
What roles can you think of immediately where you've been a leader?
Oh, I think, it could be a leader as a child, because the child could set an example for the parents. So that's a form to me of leadership. Could be a sports team, right? So two names come to mind, Henry V and Bobby Moore.
You personally, as a leader, I'm talking about.
Oh, me.
What
Oh,
roles
sorry.
have you been a leader?
I saw that look when I said Bobby Moore. Puzzlement. Who?
No, I do remember him. Yeah.
I thought
I'm
you.
of
No,
that
no.
generation.
I didn't mean you. I meant I didn't. Anyway, never mind. But more recently, it's being a leader, setting an example, for my son, for example.
Okay, so as a father.
Yeah, and in the Aikido club as well.
Okay, so as a dojo show. Okay, anything else?
Well, in my business world too.
Okay, business world. Okay, so I'll move it on one. I'm going to move on to you, Laura and Nick. Hang on, you're still muted. As I unmute you, you unmute you. You better do it. You better do it. It's not doing it at my end now.
Now?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I've been a leader in my work as a volunteer coordinator.
Okay, volunteer coordinator. Anything else?
Well, for me, I'm a teacher, maths and physics teacher.
Teacher, brilliant. I can think of another one you've been a leader in, Laura.
Tell me.
Girl Guides, didn't you help out there?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. What was your, were you Kayla?
No, I didn't have a title.
Okay. I'll move it on to Tiger. Tiger, unmute yourself.
Yeah,
So how have you been a leader?
I've been a leader of young people in Scouts,
Okay.
as a Scout commissioner. And then I've been a leader in school. I'm a teacher, Swahili. I teach Swahili.
Yep.
Also a leader in the dojo. And then also in the organization, the NGO that I learned here in Kenya.
Okay. Thank you. That's brilliant. David, move on to you. You're going to need to unmute yourselves, I think.
No, it's fine. I was. I'm gonna say I've not been a leader.
Okay.
I've been a manager.
Then you've been a leader.
I've been a manager. I've been an instructor. I've been a teacher.
Then
I wouldn't classify myself as a leader in the definitions we talked about.
Well, I would. As a teacher, you definitely have influence over others.
No, I don't. Well, influence.
Well,
I don't think that. I think you need more than influence to be a leader. So I think that you mentioned vision, you mentioned direction.
Yeah, so as a teacher, you have a course to follow. You set the course. You get people to follow that course.
Yeah, but I don't think you don't necessarily set it. You maybe follow. So
you may not create the vision. You may have had that done above you. But I'm sorry, you're still a leader in that role. Definitely.
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure about that. I think there's something more about it than being a leader. I don't think we're all. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's something like, okay, if you want to use that definition, then yes. But I'm not 100% sure where that's.
Okay, so when you're in the class, should you? I'm not going to say did you have control, but should you have had control of the class and set their direction?
Well, in terms of guiding them or giving them helping them to develop, yes.
Okay.
But I'm not too sure that's enough to be a leader. Instructor, definitely. Coach, arguably. Leader, no.
I think that leadership plays a part in all of those.
I agree, it plays a part, but I think there's more to it than that. I don't think that's enough to be a leader.
Okay. Let's accept that for the moment. And Finn, would you like to unmute?
Yeah, I was thinking back, I work in music and now I work as a music therapist, which
Okay.
I sometimes have to have a leading role, but I moved on to that from community music and music projects where I was much more in the role of leader, having to
Okay.
lead a group, and I do
Okay.
less of that these days. It's more facilitative now.
Okay.
Now, I guess I was less comfortable in the leadership role.
Okay. Is a facilitator a leader?
In a different way, I would distinguish those.
Yeah, I think it's got leadership aspects to it.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
Yeah. Anything else?
Thinking to aikido, just working with juniors and beginners. So
Okay.
in that very restricted form, I'm not the leader of the class, but I'm having to.
Sure,
lead.
absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
That's good. Ian, would you like to unmute?
I have some sympathy actually with David's opinion, but sticking with your definition, in fact, I agree with him. Sticking with your definition, then I would say that I have a band, I'm a musician, and I have to lead them.
Okay.
Really, I'm sort of, it's a benevolent dictatorship is the way I describe it.
That's fine. Yeah, that's cool. Anything else?
No.
Okay, happy with that. Piers? You're mute.
I know. Not as quick as these young things, you know.
I know.
Obviously, all the above. There's no point in repeating those. In terms of other areas where I've had a leadership role, I was the chairman of the village society for 20 years. So that was a leadership role. As a coach, a leadership coach, I've done that, which is interesting. And I did have one other one that's gone out of my mind. But yeah, if I think of it, I'll come back.
Oh, good. Well done. Well done. Siv, do you want to unmute?
I was chairman of our canoe club.
Okay.
And then also event organizer for national championships in canoeing as well.
Right. Okay. Lovely. Anything else?
No, just professionally, that's all.
Okay. Well, professionally it counts, doesn't it?
Yeah, but everyone else has already said that. So.
Hugh, I can't wait to hear what you've got to say. What roles have you been a leader? You need to unmute. You need to unmute still.
There we go. Sorry, kept missing the thing. I think that I missed the beginning. Sorry, Quentin. So I'm not sure what your definition was, but it would seem to me that the role of leadership, or the definition of leadership, equates with responsibility. So just to call or use the term leadership as being, you know, in charge of something must also imply responsibility.
Yeah.
Would that be fair?
Yeah, I think there's a degree for that. I mean, if you take people in a certain direction and it all goes wrong, all right, you take the plaudits and the brickbats.
Well, exactly right. So, but I think in life, in the majority of cases, the way the word leadership is used, it sort of forgets that point. So the responsibility seems to disappear, or one disappears very rapidly if there is responsibility to be held account to. So I think for me, leadership, the more, you know, I've had a long life, touch wood, and the more you think you're in a leadership position, I think you find you are being led. And I think the real power of leadership is the concept of leadership is leading people's minds, taking people with you, rather than being in a position where you're pushing stuff down from the top.
I agree. Any particular roles that you'd like to cite where you've been a leader?
Not really. I mean, I suppose what I've said to you is direct experience from many sort of business in situations and environments where I might have nominally been in charge of certain things, but I can see in retrospect wasn't always the case.
Okay, that's great and helpful. Thank you. Linda, you're up. I hope the coffee's kicked in.
It's a work in progress right now. It'll be coffee soon.
Okay.
But yeah, the places where I've been a leader, the style is always role model and enabling, empowering people. And in some professional contexts, it's been that way. You know, hey, I'm going to go take on this project. Who's with me, sort of thing. And where I really do it a lot is in aikido and fitness. My superpower is being a middle-aged woman who's not in awesome shape, and I've told people my video of my 6th Q exam it's right around 100,000 views right now. It's not because it's amazing, it's because people can identify with me, and they contact me and say, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to do this, and I never thought I could, but then I saw you're doing it, maybe I can. And so that's where I tend to be a leader, like, I'm going up this mountain, y'all can do it too, you know. That tends to be how I manage it.
So setting an example in everyday
Exactly, setting an
situations,
example,
actually.
and outright encouraging people, both by my example, but also explicitly. Like, for instance, I was talking to a random person in a line at the grocery store once, and about playing guitar. And she's like, oh, I wish I'd taken up an instrument. And I'm like, you can do it. You know, here's my guitar teacher's card. He's great. I started at your age. You can totally do this. And she was like, you could see the light start to flicker on, like, oh, maybe I could. You know, for her at like 35 or whatever she was at the time, it was all over. She had missed her chance. And, you know, so if I can give people that little, like, no, I know you can do this. I did it. You can go.
Yeah.
Sometimes that works. I've had a lot of people contact me and say, like, hey, I did what you said and it turned out, which is really cool. Even in those random weird encounters.
Yeah, I agree. And I love the idea of setting a good example being actually a form of leadership. And I agree. Yeah. Okay. Thank you all. So we're not entirely sure whether all of those things are leadership roles, but I would contend they are. So I think everybody's a leader at certain points in their lives. And sometimes it's just in small situations, you know, as a father, a husband, I'm just talking about me personally, as an uncle, a brother, a friend, a business manager, chair of governors, director of the non-profit, which is Aiki Extensions, an employer, dojo cho, chair of Aikido Association, advisor professionally, trainer, coach, teacher, referee. All of those, I think, are leadership roles, and personally have been things that I've done. Some of them are really little examples. Some of them are bigger. They don't any of them necessarily change the world, but all of them come with responsibility. So I think that was a really key word there, Hugh.
Quentin?
Yeah.
About the changing the world part. I heard a quote the other day that really hit home. It was like, when you're a teacher, and it would apply to parent as well, and I think to any aspect of leadership, your influence never ends. So who knows? The woman in line at the grocery store, who knows if she went on to write great folk songs or whatever, or, you know, maybe she just felt a little empowered by that and had a little bit of success and went on to do something else. But you don't know. Anytime you can be a leader in any of these little contexts, it doesn't end. Or maybe it went on to her kids, or she encouraged someone else.
This is true. It's all about lighting little candles, isn't it? And thank you for reminding me of that and making me feel a bit more hopeful about what I do than I sometimes feel.
Exactly. You might change the world. You just might not know it.
Just don't know.
It might even be in a big way. Yeah, it's just subtle.
Yeah, and I think that idea of, for me, a big part of it is setting an example, trying to be what I think a good person should be, and hoping that that helps other people. So I loved what you said too, Linda. They both touched me quite a lot. Okay, so we've explored what leadership is, and I think it plays a part in all our lives. So I think being able to cultivate good leadership skills is helpful, in the very least. At a time in the world where I'm not going to ask you all, but I think we have some rather strange leaders going around, and we probably all would crave some better leaders than we've got. You know, it never seems more pertinent to sort of try and make sure that we train good leaders for the future. So I think that Aikido can be a powerful way of bringing out leadership qualities. So what we're going to do is we're briefly going to look at, well, what are good leadership qualities? And then I'm going to put you into breakout rooms, and you're going to explore how Aikido might cultivate some of those. So again, I'm just going to go around the room and just pick your brains on, and I'll just ask you for one each until we run out. And I have a list of my own, so if you run out, then I might be able to add a few more. Just bear with me. Okay. So Jamie, I'm going to start with you. All I'm wanting is one good lead. What's a quality, one thing for a good leader? And if you can unmute yourself, that would be great.
Connection.
Connection. Wonderful. Linda?
Calling people to be their better selves, not leading them to, I don't know, bully people, but leading them to be something better.
Okay, like it. Hugh?
Empathy.
Empathy. Love it. Siv?
Integrity.
Love it. David?
Motivating.
Wonderful. Finn?
Courage, wise courage.
Ian?
Honor.
Honor. Love it. Piers? Patience was that. You have to unmute yourself, I'm afraid. Otherwise we're lip reading and I might get it wrong.
You did get it wrong. Passion.
Passion.
But patience is also there.
Okay, well, we'll add that to the list. Tiger?
Trustworthy.
Say it again. Trustworthy.
Trustworthy.
Got it. Love it.
Good one.
Laura, Nick, you can have two between you.
I would go for positivity.
Confidence.
Confidence. Sorry, I'm just getting these all down. They're all going to come in useful later. Gordon. Unmute.
Yes. Yes. I said yes.
Okay, so is that your quality?
Well, it was meant to be a joke, but obviously it didn't go over too well. Yes to all of the above that went before, because the 4 or 5 things that I came up with were previously mentioned. So
Nothing more to add at this stage?
No.
Okay, starting back with you, Jamie.
Did we say vision?
No. Thank you. Linda?
Humility.
Good one. Hugh?
Can we repeat, because you haven't got responsibility on this list?
Okay. You haven't got responsibility on that list, so you can add it, yeah?
Yeah.
Responsible. That's the word you're looking for. Siv.
Thank you very
How
much.
about takes
Thank you.
responsibility as opposed to our president? Oh,
Yeah, we're adding another one. Siv.
The ability to manage conflict.
Ability to manage conflict. Okay, I like it. David?
We haven't got listening yet, have we?
Good listener. Excellent. Marvellous.
What was that? Sorry?
Listening.
Good
Oh,
listener.
ability to listen.
Yeah.
Finn?
Persistence.
Persistence. Ian? You're out.
I'm clean out of ideas.
Okay. Piers?
Good communicator.
Good communicator. Yeah. Tiger? Who's going to be the last man standing?
I think ability to handle. I'm lacking the word to explain it. Maybe I'll do it maybe afterwards. When
I'll leave you with it and see if you can come back with it. Laura and Nick.
Yes.
Well, I would go with action reflection.
Charisma.
Charisma, what's your one, Nick? I didn't understand that.
It is action and reflection. But yo-yo between the two. You need to know when to act, and you need to know when to think and to reflect on what you've done.
Okay, so they need to be an ability to. Can we put another word on that? Maybe decisive. They can make decisions to do nothing or make decisions to change.
Well, partly yes, but I was thinking more in terms of kind of like, you know, you need to be like the philosopher king. But like, you know, if you're the leader, you need to be kind of like, you know, first among everybody.
So are you looking for wisdom then?
Yes, and well, yeah, okay, fine. Wisdom, fine.
We're settled for wisdom. Gordon, any more? Still out?
I just thought of one, which is a consensus maker. I'm not sure if that even makes sense grammatically, but.
Okay. Jamie.
Well, I might be the last. I don't want to be the last man standing, but approachability.
Approachable. Got it. Christian, you're on. We're asking for qualities of leadership. So you may be down on this because you haven't heard the rest. But if you unmute, I'm looking for a word.
Tiger, I think you need to mute.
What's the quality of a good leader that people may not have thought of so far?
I didn't hear the first one, so.
You're a bit out of luck, mate. I'm not going through the list. It's a long one.
Yeah. For me, it's just presence. For me, it's essential.
Well, there you go. They got a new one. Presence. Well done.
Ah!
Linda.
I didn't know it was a bingo.
No, it is a bit like that. It's a lot. Linda, another one?
Creativity or flexibility, like adjusting your approach to fit the person or the situation.
Okay. Creative.
Adaptable.
Two.
Yeah.
Yeah, you cheated, but I like them both, so they're both going on the list.
Okay.
Hugh.
May I add resilient?
Resilience. Brilliant. Okay. Hugh, any more?
In contrast to presence, we say somebody has presence. I was going to say present. In other words, you need to turn up. You need to be there.
Yes, it is different.
It is different. Yeah.
Siv? Are you out, Siv, or you got one more for us?
Sense of humor.
Yeah.
Well, what about emotion intelligence?
Emotional intelligence. I like it.
Huge.
This is a really long list. Anything else?
Something about communication skills or clarity.
Oh, we've got that. Good communicator. Anything else?
I would say an innovator.
Innovator. Anything else?
I would say a couple of them. One is authenticity, being genuine and real, authentic.
Authentic, yeah.
And another one, we kind of said it, but somebody said empathy, which is important. A slightly different word, but similar, is caring. Really caring.
Okay. Linda, did you have another one?
Resourceful.
Resourceful.
What about delegation and empowerment?
Yeah, I love it. Well done. Empowerment of others.
How about virtue?
Virtuous, yep.
Ethics. Yeah.
Ethical.
Ethical, yeah.
Any more? I think it's a long
Humility. Humility hasn't been mentioned at
Yeah,
all.
no, we've got humility.
Is it? All right.
We have decision making capability.
Say that again.
Excuse me, I have to step out for just a bit, but
That's fine. Tiger, I didn't catch what you said.
Do you have decision making capability?
Yeah, I think we had that. Has vision somewhere, but I can't see it immediately, so I'm going to put it on.
Have you got positive?
Yes. Okay, so I'll read out the list. I think you've covered most. They're able to make tough decisions. They're grounded in reality. These are ones that I want to add.
I thought they were supposed to be one word, Quentin.
Oh yeah, that's true. Grounded then. Grounded. How's that?
Okay.
Okay.
Realist.
The rest aren't one word, so you blow it for me. Okay, I'm going to read out the list. They're resourceful. They're good at connecting. They're good at making people better. They have empathy, integrity. They're motivational. They have courage. They have honor, passion, patience, trustworthy, positivity, confidence, vision, humility. They're responsible. They have a good ability to manage conflict. So they make tough decisions. Good listener, persistence, good communicator. They have charisma, wisdom. They're good at making consensus. They're approachable. They have presence. They're creative, adaptable, resilient, present. They have a sense of humor, emotional intelligence. They're innovators, authentic, caring. They're good at empowering others, virtuous, ethical, and have vision. So, I think I did repeat vision. That's a really long list. And as I go through it, there are many words there that leap out as qualities that I believe Aikido training brings out. But I'm going to put you into breakout rooms and you can see if you agree with me. So we have 13. I'm going to create 4 breakout rooms. So you know the format. I'll put you in there. I'll flit and flirt around there and see how you're all doing. And then eventually I'll pull you all back.
Could you repeat again the question?
What I would like you to do is see how Aikido training might relate to leadership and how it might culture the qualities that you've mentioned.
Quen, the sound is really crap. Is it because there's feedback somewhere?
I think
Tiger's not muted.
Yeah, I mean, just, yeah.
It is. It's only him because he's got his speakers on.
Okay. So he's muted now. So what I'm asking for is I'm asking for you to think about the list of qualities that we've just thought about and see how Aikido training might cultivate those qualities. Which qualities particularly leap out at you and why do they relate to Aikido for you? Hi, Richard. Nice to see you. So I'm going to put you in your rooms. Off you go. Marvelous.
It was a big list Quentin reeled off, and I didn't write them all down. I know Tiger's been writing them down, like seriously, writing them all down.
I can quickly remind you.
Well, yeah, well, there's so many. I mean, you can reel off a few if you want. Go on then, give us a quick.
Well, I don't have to. I mean, you could just.
Well, in some ways, I guess one of the things is where Yeah, I mean, all of the things around Aikido in terms of just getting out on the mat, developing assertiveness, I guess, being, well, that's probably not on the list, but I think just, yeah, just being a good being a good Aikidoka in terms of following what your partner's doing, attacking with sincerity, caring for your partner, helping them. There's a thing here about helping people to evolve. It's a cooperative thing. It's so in that point of view, you're actually bringing people along. You're helping people skill build, and that's what I just practicing as a normal person, shall we say. But then you start thinking about the higher grids on the mat who have got maybe more responsibilities in terms of guiding people, setting examples, sharing their experience, being generous with experience, but then also looking at what you're doing in terms of the organization itself. So are you helping the organization to grow? Do you have a vision to make it better? Are you growing clubs? Are you growing dojo, growing the organization?
Can I stop you there, David? Just so the words that I pick out from what you've said so far. So I'm editing as you go along.
Yeah.
So I get that there's cultivating confidence.
Yep.
Training. There's empathy because
Yep.
you're looking after others. There's a guide. You learn to guide others when you have more knowledge than them. And there's generosity in there too, a sharing and giving of yourself to your fellow partner, to your
Yep.
students, to the organization.
Yep.
So guys, these are the things that I want you to be able to bring back to the main room. So one of you needs to be a spokesperson and say, okay, these are the qualities and this is how we cultivate them within Aikido. Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So I shall leave you now.
And a lot of people who do Aikido would get a real surprise if they actually got in a real fight, because they'd just be hammered basically, you know. So I have a lot of experience in jiu-jitsu basically, not so much in Aikido.
And why was the leadership so much better in jiu-jitsu then, as opposed to you enjoying it? But why was the leadership so much
I think
better?
the club was far well, they're just better people, the ones I met, basically, you know. I don't know how else to put it, really. It comes down to that, I think, you know. They were friendlier. I think what I mentioned earlier is one of the problems with Aikido. There's a sort of dichotomy between the real fighting and Aikido. And I say this from the inside, but from the outside, just about everyone says this. So of course, because jiu-jitsu is the real thing, and if you've got someone jumped on you, you could use it. But Aikido, I doubt it. Because of that, I think that's the problem. I think really. I'm sorry. If you ask me a question, you get a dead straight answer, because that's the sort of bloke I am. Because I think fighting is not just a physical thing. That's why I said honor. A leader's about a king. It's as simple as that.
Could be a queen. I mean, I say that because it's very noticeable in this pandemic crisis that the leadership, where you've got female leaders in several countries, they've managed the situation a lot better than some of the egotistical males that are hanging around the place.
Yeah.
I mean, throughout Scandinavia, through to New Zealand and to Taiwan, it's been a very impressive result.
Yeah, I agree with that. A lot of it, I think, is down to them being better communicators and having, egos are out of the way, but they tend to empathize more with other people.
Yeah.
I mean, Ian, can I just chip in? So firstly, don't get too far off the track, because what you're looking for is whatever you think leadership is, and whether actually you're practicing jiu-jitsu, because I think all martial arts do help cultivate leadership skills. I think Aikido is particularly good at it, but That's debatable. You're looking at what skills can be cultivated within the training. Not what your experience is, but what skills can be cultivated if it's trained well.
Yeah,
and by the way,
we've got
straight answers is great.
Yeah. No, we've got a short list here. Don't worry. Before you came on, we've written down some words. But I mean, I think, Ian, there's one subject which is sort of a bit of a pet subject of mine, where I would kind of agree and disagree with you, and it's about teaching. And you mentioned that you'd come across a lot of people who couldn't teach, and you probably have to be born with it. I think you can be taught to teach like everything else. I mean, people go to teacher training college to teach, to learn how to teach. So I think and some of them become extremely good teachers. The unusual thing in martial arts world, and Aikido is no different probably, is that your ranking determines how much you teach, not your ability to teach. And I think that's a very, very fundamental, and that's where a lot of problems do occur. And my experience is that where that natural, so-called natural process of ranking determines the teaching, where I see less of a problem in my experience, and going back to the real life example I just gave, is with most of the women teachers that I've seen do not fall into the same traps. I mean, there may be, you could say that is something you're born with, sort of more natural empathy or whatever it is. But I think Siv's points are the ones that we'll pass on back to Quentin. So what's the result is empathy and conflict management are the two key ones. And I would agree with those, because I've used that, going both ways, learning it in the dojo and taking it outside, and learning it outside and bringing it into the dojo.
Oh, let me throw in a few more then. How about learning when to enter and when to back off?
Yeah.
Well, that may be, and I suspect. Sorry to do interrupt Ian or Siv just very quickly, because I'm going to read Ian's mind here. I think he would have a good answer to your point. But in a martial sense, there's what Thomas Chrysler would call that tiny martial moment where you do the deed or you don't. And in terms of entering or not entering, it's really a question. I think Aikido can give you a sense of danger, and the best form of Aikido is to remove yourself from a situation of danger and not even to engage. But if you can't do that, then you've got to do something. So you've almost got to do what O-sensei always did, which is initiate. You've almost got to be there before the other person.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is there are times where it's appropriate to go do a Rimi and really go for it. And there are times where you need to create space and see what develops. Now, that's something we practice on the mat all the time. And I think it's something we need to practice in daily life. There are times where we just need to go for it, and times where we need to give people space.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I fully accept that. What I was saying is there are times where you don't have the space to make the space.
Okay.
Your back might be up against the wall,
well,
so
in
you've got to
those
do
cases,
something
then
different.
the decision's made, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
But in real life, we often have space to allow people's more time and to fully express themselves, as opposed to cutting them short and saying, fuck off, you're going to do it my way.
Oh.
And there are plenty of leaders that do that, but they're not necessarily great leaders.
There are plenty of leaders who don't do that. It's
Thank
not an
God,
option.
but I can think of one or two in major positions that do.
Yeah, true.
And on that happy
Sorry,
note,
Ian, I was putting words in your mouth. What?
I'm going to move on.
Okay.
And influence them, perhaps in your example, to help them to see they're not doing their fucking job. But if you don't understand where they're coming from, all you can do is attack. If you understand that perhaps they don't perceive their job in the same way as you do, you can have a different dialogue.
Yeah, and just to finish on this, because I have a very concrete example. I began the last week to do some kind of team coaching for teleworking teams. It's just very pressure because you don't have the control because you don't see the people, and they say a bad connection, all these kind of things. And then you can see that one person is just trying to use the system to let the work be done by others. It's, you understand, there is no solution. He has to understand first that he's seen. So we see you, and I think this is very important, the contact. And all the leaders or manager or team chief or team responsible, call it whatsoever, when I see the biggest problem they have, it's impossible to just say that's not right. They try to say yes, and I understand at the same time.
So Christian, how about when you're an Aikido teacher, do you challenge your students and kind of say to them sometimes, look, stop whining, you're not putting up enough effort, or, you know, just try harder or something like that? Maybe some people are trying to, you know,
yes, and I'm sure that this is something that can be learned, but maybe not always in every dojo, in every practice. It's what I call irimi practice, just kind of straight, not only circles, but there are straight lines sometimes also.
Yeah, the punch in the face.
Yes, because it's well known that Aikido is attracting people who love circles. Just round and round and round. If you have done already Aikido and Karate workshop, for example, you see that the people, wow, if it's a real punch, they're just not doing it.
Ran Sensei put that idea well once in a seminar. I think I've heard it a few times about the idea of getting off the line and blending. And he says, what if you're on a log across a gorge? You know, this is my log. You get off the log. And that's an aspect of Aikido. You know, this is my line. You move. I think it's in there as well.
Yes.
It's less spoken about, but it's available. It's, you know, a kind of atemi.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's no how to say, hard and fast rule of kind of like how you resolve the situation. Obviously, we want to kind of like to bring any kind of disturbance back to kind of equilibrium, some kind of a kind of universal balance, but kind of like you know, how we perceive it and kind of like how we act, kind of like, you know, sometimes we get it right, sometimes we get it wrong.
Yeah, so I mean, it's that training line that I'm always using: appropriate action at the appropriate time. And what we're trying to do is make sure that we come up with the appropriate action more often than not. And that's what our training is to do, so that in the end, we get it right most of the time, but there's never perfection, is there?
And I think kind of like
all solutions are open. Your straight line, or stepping off the line, or moving in circles, or moving backwards. Any of those things are legitimate in the right place.
Yeah.
You'd be, Quentin, you'd be a very good politician.
I agree with Quentin.
I am.
We necessarily agree with this proposition.
But I think that's right. You said it, Christian. It's about being appropriate. And if a straight line and a punch in the face works better than dancing around in circles, that's what you do. Tell it straight.
Yeah, and that's what's come to mind. It's not only this on this, it's just training this kind of finding the balance.
So, and also I said that I thought it really helped with communication, particularly if you're teaching, because different people learn in different ways that you well know. You know, some will do it by kinesthetic means, some verbally, some orally, blah, 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 visually. So it helps with communication. So those are the things we've come up with. What would you like to add?
Well, a couple of things, I guess. Communication, it's a relationship, and whether you're teaching to your students or you're practicing with each other, it's a conversation. So there's just so much communication, and it's verbal and it's nonverbal. which also speaks to some of the different learning styles or different ways we communicate. And, and we have to be listening with our bodies, you know, we have to be tuned in, we have to be connected in that interaction. So it's all about relationship and interaction, the way we practice. And I think a really big thing, and I teach about this a lot actually, is to see the martial arts in general as an experience of stress and stress management. We're stressed because someone's attacking us, right? So then we go into what our reactions or responses, fight, flight, freeze, the emotions that can come up, etc. Ego things come up, all sorts of stuff comes up because we are in this pressure, attack, sort of danger situation, you know, self-defense, self-preservation, etc. So we get to really look at ourselves. You know, we see our emotional responses. We work with, as Tiger was saying, our emotional intelligence and maintaining it or restoring it if we're losing it because we moved into reactivity. We get to work with our clarity of mind, our thought process, and our decision-making process, and also how that's affected by in our stress reactions, biochemistry, blah, blah, blah. But I think, you know, I mean, being a leader, living life, but being a leader, you're responsible for the adversities and the opportunities, you know, the good and the bad, everything that comes up, you have a lot of responsibility for. And so how do you maintain that when you feel pressured, when you feel threatened, when you feel stressed? And so we're practicing the skills, the centering, the balance, breathing, you know, all those kinds of things that we practice in Aikido that help us deal with stress well, so that we can keep clear-minded, make good decisions, stay in our better selves. Someone was talking about that, being in our better selves and our sort of better, higher emotional intelligence, these kinds of things. So, you know, I think we get to practice that all the time. And then we take tests. I mean, as adults, we don't get to take tests very often. And so when we take a belt test, it's like we're just like little kids out there and we're getting tested and people are watching us and are we going to pass and fail? And so that really puts us in that kind of stress and performance situation. Obviously, we're looking for peak performance under stress, under the test situation, and under the eyes of people. So, I mean, we're in a performance situation where we're literally getting tested. And that's really what's happening with leaders. I mean, you're out there. People are watching you. People are seeing you. You need to perform, and you need to perform well. And just the fact that you are the leader is already a stressful position to be in. So there's so many things, you know. I think that we're practicing on the mat, in the dojo, and in the structure of Aikido that we don't necessarily get to do quite so much, and especially quite so consciously. The thing about Aikido is it's such a conscious place. I mean, it's like that in golf, for example. I just finished the golf mastery school, and it's like that. But it's even more like that in Aikido. I mean, it's really the dojo. We were in the golf dojo, and that was cool. And you know, but the dojo, it's like, wow, that's all it is. The mat is just a perfect laboratory and mirror and place to work on. You know, I always say, lots of trial, lots of errors, and from that we grow, we develop.
Yeah. You have to have a little bit of self-honesty, doesn't it? So that seems to me an incredibly good quality to have as a leader, to be able to look at yourself and work on the bad stuff and realize what you're good at too. And the word that leapt out at me from everything you said there, Jamie, was resilience, actually. You know, we get a tremendous amount of resilience from training because we're always being knocked to the floor and we have to get up again and we make mistakes time and time again. And, you know, it's always a battle to make that progress. And that must strengthen the character. And that must be a good leadership quality.
Well, apropos of that, Quentin, is that exactly what you said, but talking about somatics, we actually somaticize that. We experience it. You know, we fall down, we get thrown down, and like physically we're down there, you know, maybe we're pinned. It's like, what do I do now? Yeah. And it's not metaphorical and it's not abstract. It's like, this is really happening. And can I keep getting up over and over again? And how do I do that? And how do I come back in? And how do I regain my fullness? Another quality, actually, and so I think that that's a really cool part of Aikido. Like, when do you literally fall down and get thrown down and knocked down? Like only in Aikido, yeah? Or, you know, this martial art thing. The other is about balance and maintaining our inner balance, even when we're outwardly off balanced. And, you know, shit happens, life happens, we're off balanced all the time. COVID's happening, right? There's like, but there's an inner balance. How do you maintain, you know, I mean, a good uke has inner balance. An uke that doesn't have the inner balance and it's leaning and falling, and it's like, that's not the person you really want to work with. So even when we're outwardly imbalanced, how do we keep our inner balance is a really big one. And I think leaders really need to do that. And even if you're, you know, home at the end of the day talking to your husband or wife or whatever, and you're, you know, blowing off your steam, but, you know, in the leadership position, I mean, you can show a little bit, but pretty much you got to have your balance, and that's the resilience, regain your balance kind of thing.
I think that's a good point, actually, Jamie.
And learning from your, yeah, I mean, learning to accept failure. Another great quality for leaders to have. You know, they don't get it right all the time, but learning from it and putting it right.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's part of resilience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that actually gives you empathy, because not everybody in your team or in your group or in your company or your family is gonna, and we're all gonna fail. We're all gonna make mistakes. And we need to have some empathy for that. And also a perspective on the learning process. The learning process includes mistakes, and it includes trials and lots of errors. And we have to have room for that without, you know, sort of damning the person or damning ourselves, and to have that be a place for growth and correction rather than damnation, I would say. And that way you have people following you, and you have people bought into what you're doing.
Just going to close the rooms in 3 minutes, just so you know. Put us back and try and harvest what you've all brought together from this. Interesting to dip into the room, and they take very different tones.
That must be fun, huh?
Yeah. It kind of is. I'll leave you just to sort of finish off, and I'll see you shortly.
We'll miss you.
Thank you so much.
No, we won't.
Don't be horrible. Bing, and you're back. Great. So in breakout room 1, we had Christian, Laura, Nick, Linda, and Richard. Who wants to play spokesman? Hand up. Laura, brilliant. Do you want to unmute yourself?
Yep. So we first started talking about aspects of leadership, good leadership that we can hone by Aikido training, like positivity and confidence, being adaptable, flexible, present and perceptive, and responsive. And we talked about appropriate action at appropriate time. So we weren't talking about knee-jerk reaction. We were talking about being proactive, and you're taking decisions. So as like the Nagi, you're setting a path or direction and you're taking the other person with you. And it might mean you put yourself in your partner's place or next to them in order to sort of understand them better. But you have to keep your own center so that you're not, you know, when you put yourself in your partner's place, yeah, you're not losing your own sense of direction. You've got to know where you're going to end up, you know, in order to take people with you. So it might involve an aligning of views or a meeting in the middle, but you are trying to keep the sense of direction and keep the sense of control. We talked quite a lot about how Aikido can be a lot about moving in circles and having longer movements and giving time for things to play out. But another aspect of Aikido is the irimi practice, where you're going direct and in. And both are important because there is problems with going in endless circles, because that can be very frustrating for everyone when you don't reach a conclusion or there's a stalemate or something. So sometimes the Aikido practitioner, particularly the Aikido teacher, needs to take responsibility, hold people accountable, and you know, with the setting the direction, they also need to kind of set framework and boundaries so that while dialogue and consensus is encouraged, there are also some focuses on what we're trying to achieve, the goals, the outcomes, and making sense of all that dialogue so that it's not just a kind of pointless, never-ending circle.
Why are you looking at your husband at this point?
Oh, I wasn't.
I agree to everything she said.
Excellent. So you should. You know your place. Anything else, Laura?
We talked about, you know, training teaches patience, and Aikido takes patience. And we talked about how I think the authoritarian style of leadership has now been called into question, and many people feel uncomfortable with that. But some people have gone too much the other way, where they're not prepared to hold people to account or just to call people on their bullshit, basically. So and we need that in Aikido. We don't want to be the people that just wave hands and people fall over and it's all fake and everything.
Sure, it's good. It's a really nice long list. If you wouldn't mind either putting it in the chat or sending it to me afterwards, that would be great. In group 2, we had Gordon, Jamie and Piers. I think Piers was playing Scribe. So would you like to chip in, Piers? You need to unmute, of course.
I have unmuted. So we started off very concise. So, and then Jamie joined us.
You asked me.
I know. You gave us some loads of great stuff. I was writing like crazy. I couldn't keep up with you. So we started off by Gordon basically said that he felt that physical technique helps to ground all the ideas that you identified in the first section. And then I said that I felt that through Aikido technique, you learn true honesty, integrity, and sincerity, because you know, if you attack someone without integrity and honesty, or if you try and defend without integrity and honesty, you're not really practicing Aikido and you won't develop or progress. So it's a really great laboratory, Jamie's word, which I thought was a really good one. I like that. It's a really great laboratory to learn. And I also thought that it really helps with communication, because particularly if you're teaching, because everybody learns in a slightly different way. Some people will learn by watching, some people learn by hearing, some people learn by feeling. It helps you as a teacher to be a better communicator. And then Jamie came up with some really good stuff. She talked about the connection. You have to have a physical and also a mental connection with your partner. You're practicing the art of stress and stress management, because obviously that's the whole point. You're being attacked, and how do you look deeply into yourself and understand what's happening and your responses when you're put under stress. She also mentioned about the resilience factor, the fact that you're being thrown down on the floor and you have to get up again, and you have to look deeply inside yourself, and whilst you're down there, you have to control your physical and mental responses, like your breathing and all that sort of stuff. And also Jamie mentioned about the fact that when you're doing Aikido, you actually take tests, and you know, most people give up taking tests when they finish school or university, and that puts you in a position of a really interesting position where you are on the spot. And actually that's what leaders are all the time. They're on the spot. That's about it, really.
Good, thank you. Group 3, we had Hugh, Ian and Siv. And Hugh, which one of you is going to be spokesman? Hugh? You? Okay, you're on mute.
I was going to propose Siv because he came up with the best words. But anyway, we can be a little more brief here, I think, since our conversation took a little bit of a. We were looking at a wider perspective, perhaps, but empathy and conflict management were the key. The key.
Okay. Yeah.
Things that can be cultivated from Aikido training, and putting yourself in the other person's position, and I think that is about it. There was some discussion on the issues surrounding teaching and the relationship between students and the teacher, and the fact that in a number of martial arts that rank determines who teaches, not teaching ability. And that's it, really.
Okay, so you went off on one then.
Sorry?
I said you went off on one then. That's okay.
Well, I learned a lot about jiu-jitsu, if you'd like to know about that.
No, another time.
Okay.
We'll have another conversation about that. Breakout room 4, we had David, Finn and Tiger. Who's going to be spokesman?
David, did I see you taking notes there?
Yeah, me, I think.
Go for it, David.
So, so we've looked at a couple of things. So, one of the things so far is I was just trying to distill what Aikido does differently than maybe some other martial arts or bits and pieces. So that was one of the things I was looking at. So, one thing we did talk about is when you're practicing with multiple attackers, that's helping you develop flexibility, adaptability, decision making. Quite a good thing. Because it is a paired practice. Generally, then you've got your development of trust. So you are, as Uki, you're giving your body to your partner to work with, and therefore you need to develop and build up trust. And also then the other side, you've also then developing responsibility, because you've got this person who's offering themselves up to you for you to look after them properly. There's this idea of because it's generally a cooperative practice. You're not hiding your tricks and your little skill bits and pieces. You're sharing, so you're developing generosity. You're also helping because you're also helping the person to grow. So if you look at the leadership type thing we talked about, it's all about growth and building a team together. So you're building growth and strength and developing, and also the fact that we in terms of the attacks that we were presenting our partner with, we can change the speed and strength of those attacks to help the person to grow as opposed to destroying or overwhelming them. So there's something here about how do you calibrate what you're doing, how do you sort of work together. So there's the cooperative thing, there's also the growth element as well, which is helping you to become a better leader, to understand and what's going on. And you're also into this, again, because it's a pair practice, you're into listening, both with words and also watching what people are doing, but also listening to your body and also listening to the other partner in terms of that. Then the other comments that the people made around resilience, acting under pressure, and all that stuff is fairly straightforward. But then Tiger then asked Tiger what Aikido had given him in terms of the thing so far, and he came up with some fantastic things of what Aikido itself has actually given to him as an overall picture around developing confidence, improving communication, humility. He's having to be creative in the environment he's working in to make places to train in Kenya in areas where they haven't got all the resources available. You got the equipment's not really there, so there's this whole idea in terms of him as a teacher developing. But in some ways, that's more about Tiger than Aikido as a whole, maybe. And then Finn was also talking about the practice for him has given him more confidence, increasing his dynamism, and also developing integrity and moving forward from that. So that's probably most of what we talked about, I think.
Wow, no, brilliant, lovely list. Thank you. The one thing that springs to mind that nobody's actually said is that in Aikido we look for a win-win situation. So you can't go through, when you're a leader, not everybody agrees with you, but if you can take people with you so they don't feel like they've been stamped on, that's a brilliant quality to have. And that's what Aikido ultimately is all about. It's about creating that situation where people are happy to be thrown, not resentful, and that they carry on following. Oh, you're nodding your head, David. Please chip in.
No, I was just wondering, is that, no, nothing. I was just wondering, in terms of enjoying being thrown around, is that just because we're crackers as opposed to someone being a good leader? That was all.
I think it depends how you're thrown.
But some people just like getting thrown. It's quite entertaining. Yeah.
If you're thrown badly, that's developing resilience. When you're thrown nicely, that's developing something else.
But there's a difference between what you're doing on the mat and if you actually needed to use it. And if you actually needed to use it, I would question whether the person was seeing that as something they desired.
Yeah. You're practicing offering a peaceable or a desirable solution.
Yeah, you are. I mean, not every. You won't carry everybody all the time, but as long as everybody feels listened to and that they played their part in the decision making, and they understand that the idea is to work towards the common goal, I think most people will go with that. But if you keep making the wrong decisions as a leader, you don't stay a leader for all that long, we hope. Jamie, I can tell you, dying to say something.
I am. Well, you guys are sparking so many things. Listening to a couple things. One, and was around Randori, and when I do some of these corporate and leadership trainings in business, it's been really fun to create. First of all, we talk about self-leadership, and I think that that's something that we get in Aikido. We haven't really talked about that part of it, is that we're really working on our own self-leadership and how do we manage ourself. And I go into that. That's a whole thing that's interesting, and how to kind of convey that to non-Aikido people. But I think that's a really important concept, is our self-leadership, and that's really what we're developing when we're training. So that's one thing. And then along with the self-leadership is around Dori. And basically, it's a really good metaphor for the multi-demands, multi-pressures, multitasking. And, you got so many things you're juggling and responsible for. And there's this aspect and that aspect of your business, and then the human resource and relations. There's so many things going on. And so we'll use the Randori thing and do sort of like in therapy we call it psychodrama, but, where you sort of play something out. So I'll divide people in groups, 5, 6, 8 people in a group. And the one person, the one leader is in the center, and they've got an issue. And then they assign to each person the pressure or the issue, all the multi-demands coming at them from all these directions. Even work-life balance is one of them. And so each person is, on the outside, is acting the part of that particular issue or stressor or problem or person going on. And then you're in the middle and you're like, yeah, what do I do, right? And so it's really working with that energy and working with the qualities. How do you handle? And we'll make it a specific issue as well. that they're working with in their business. But Randori is just such a great metaphor, and it's really because of Aikido, we can sort of play it out in what would be that sort of role play or psychodrama kind of thing, and really get you're in the middle and you're the leader and you got all this going on. What do you do about that? So we can work with that, and that's a really, really cool and powerful training experience for non-Aikido people in the business world.
Under pressure.
Yeah.
Okay, you've come up with some amazing stuff, so well done and thank you. Because I'll let you into a little secret. There's a thing called the Aikido University that's about to take off online, and I'm planning to put a course on there. And guess what subject it's going to be on, guys? It's going to be about Aikido and leadership. So I thought I might as well harvest the wisdom of you all, like any good leader should.
You used us.
I did. I used and abused you. But you certainly come up with some stuff that I can use, so thank you. Let me just quickly run through that list of things that we came up with in the beginning and see if I can make a connection with Aikido. Resourceful. Well, actually, we've just described a situation in Randori where you've got to be very resourceful. So I think, yeah, that brings it out. Connection. Well, if you're not connected in Aikido, you can't do it right. So definitely training connection. Calling people to be better, that's what teachers do all the time and what senior students do for beginners that are training with them. We're always calling people to be better and we're always trying to stretch them just a bit further than their current limits. Empathy, we have to put ourselves in our partner's place and see where they're coming from in order to do the move properly. Integrity, if we don't look at ourselves personally, we don't grow. And so we have to have integrity. Motivation. Well, if you don't have motivation, you wouldn't keep getting up every time you were thrown down. And and when mistakes happen, you just give up. So we have to self-motivate, and we have to have teachers who motivate us. Courage. We trust our bodies to our partners all the time. So I think you've got to have a lot of courage to practice any martial art, but definitely comes out in Aikido. Honor. It's kind of built into the system, isn't it? We honor our teachers, we honor our students, we honor each other. Without honor, we haven't got anything. Passion, God, blimey, I think we've displayed it in abundance here. We're all passionate about what we practice, and for good reason. Patience, again, as a teacher, students don't get it. You can't give up on them. You have to be patient until they get it. You don't get it, and you have to be patient with yourself until you get it. Trustworthy. Again, you're offering your body, so David, yeah, chip in. Do you want to unmute? No? Okay. Chip in if you want to. Positivity. Aikido cultivates positivity all the time, and you have to have a positive energy about it. Confidence. Without confidence, you can't do any of the techniques well. You have to go for it. Vision. You've got to be able to see the big picture in Aikido, and I think that's what our training gives us. It allows us to feel like we've got more time than the average person. We take it all in. Humility. If being thrown down all the time and making mistakes all the time doesn't give you some element of humility, then I don't know. It must make you more humble than you were. Responsible. You're responsible for other people, and you're responsible for your own behavior. The grading system for me, every time I got a grade, I thought, oh no, I've got to be that grade now. So I felt a huge self-responsibility. As a club leader, I feel really responsible for all my students. Whenever I put stuff out into the world, I feel responsible for what I say. And I'm sure you all feel that. The ability to manage conflict. Right at the center of what we do. I'm not missing anything out here, by the way. These are all words you came up with. Good listener. Well, that's listening in all the senses, feeling what's going on and being in the moment. And that's giving you the maximum amount of information to make more good decisions than not. In Aikido, that means nice, smooth technique. Off the mat, it means you manage difficult situations and people don't even realize that they've been managed. Persistence. Again, hardwired in. We have to keep getting up and going on. Charisma. I think Aikido encourages us to be positive, and we become more noticeable as we walk into a room. So I'm not saying that every person who studies Aikido is charismatic, but I do think it takes you down that road. Wisdom. Yeah, I think making all those mistakes over the years gives you wisdom. So I think it encourages that. A consensus maker. Well, again, I think that's hardwired into the art. We're looking for harmony within what we do, and we're looking for a harmonious end. Approachable. You don't back off even when the going gets tough. People you can come at you and you don't throw it back at them. Presence. You have to be grounded and present when you're practicing Aikido. Creativity. We have to come up with who knows what solution. If you're thinking about what the solution is, you're not being creative. Aikido kind of is spontaneous, I would say. Good Aikido is spontaneous, so you have to be incredibly creative. Adaptable. You never, if you're thinking this is the solution, half the time you read it wrong, you get it wrong. So you have to be able to change on a dime. I think it encourages that. Resilient. Definitely, all that stuff about getting up again. Being present, you've got to be mindful in Aikido. Aikido encourages mindfulness in all sorts of ways, noticing the small stuff about yourself and others. Sense of humor. You've got to laugh, otherwise you'd cry, wouldn't you, every time you practice on the mat? And there's nothing better than practicing in a club that's laughing. If you know your students are having a good time, you know you're making progress. So I think it encourages a sense of humor. Emotional intelligence. Again, it must develop that, doesn't it? You know, the very practice of what we do, emotional intelligence. An innovator. How many times a week do I say, oh, look, I've just tried this and it worked? It does encourage you to be creative and do new stuff. Authentic, same as honest. Caring, definitely. Empowerment of others, always. Virtuous, there. Ethical, there. So every single word, I think you can link to Aikido, and our training encourages it. And your harvesting very much mirrored that. So brilliant effort. That's taken us to where I wanted to get to. So this is your chance to chip in and just throw in final comments. If you want to just stick up your hand. Linda, do you want something to say? Or have you just frozen? Go on, Linda, go for it.
Come in frozen here.
Yes, you have. Yes, you have a bit.
It looks like you all have frozen. Okay. What I noticed when we were discussing this was a distinction between there's two aspects to look at. One is the distinction between the principles of Aikido, either the blending or seeing things from others' point of view, that sort of thing. There's that aspect, but there's also what does the actual practicing training do for us? Like for me, patience was a big one. Patience is necessarily, one of the central principles of Aikido, but the practice teaches us patience. The practice teaches us humility, regardless of whether it's one of the things we're consciously working. I think looking at it from both of those perspectives is really helpful.
I agree. Yeah, good. Anybody else? Richard.
Two things I think are key in a good leader are communication and setting a direction. And I didn't hear those on any of the lists.
Communication did come out in our original list, I think. But I totally agree with you. Setting a direction, I think, did as well. Piers said that in his definition of what a good leader was. I think actually that's where it came out when we were talking about what leadership meant, and those two aspects came out.
Good.
Any other comments that other people would like to offer? David, yes, please.
Just one quick comment. I don't know whether it's maybe not unique to him, but my teacher's teacher, Master Noke, one of his phrases was Aikido is leading. And to think about that all the time, and I never really thought about that when you asked the question, what is leadership? But yeah, so it's about leading your partner, leading his mind, leading his heart, leading his soul, whatever you want to take him. So.
Beautifully said. What a lovely way to finish, unless anybody else got something else they want to add.
I just want to say a word about Aikido University before we're done.
Okay, go.
Yeah, so Aikido University is launching, I think June 1st. Quentin's preparing a course, so am I. You could, speaking of leadership, you could prepare a course yourself. You go to aikidouniversity.org. They're really just kind of getting it together. And it just, for starters, put in, if you have a course that you'd like to teach, you know, certainly think about that. What we're doing is to create a kind of Aikido in the world, applying Aikido. And to do that, that's where we're going with it. For starters, we want to have a dozen courses that are kind of in that realm. And so if and as we have them, we'll put them on a page, and that's all going to grow into our whole Aikido in the World department. But for starters, which is all right now starters, it's about having some courses in that realm. So if you have something that you'd like to teach, and they have a kind of a format that's, it's not really the interactive kind of course, that'll be coming, but it's more like divide whatever you're doing into 1 or 3 or 10 or 20, you know, pieces, 10 minutes, create a section, maybe a little video about that. You know, we'll get that information. They'll get that information to you. But if there's something you really want to convey and teach, and you can charge $29, $39, $99, I gotta say in dollars, but whatever, it's up to you. But if you're interested or think you might have a course that you want to teach, ask Quentin, ask me. It would be wonderful. And we're all leaders. You're all leaders. So, you know, don't just leave it to me and Quentin. If there's something you'd like to teach of interest and an application, particularly of Aikido, think about it. And just at this point, it's reserve a spot. Just go, hey, you know, I'm going to do something. You don't have to have your course ready by June 1st. Just get it ready in the next, whatever, month or two and whatever. But so please think about that, because we want to start filling out at least our initial offerings in order to actually really create this Aikido in the World department.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie.
Jamie, what's the expectation of the course length? Is it 10 minutes overall, or like 4 or 5 chunks of 10 minutes?
No, it'll be chunks. It'll be in chunks.
It's
I mean, you want to have more than 10 minutes. You know, if it's something that you're teaching and conveying, kind of chunked up. We're still understanding it ourselves, how that chunked up is and all of that. But yeah,
maybe I mean, about an hour. Is that about what's appropriate for a course length?
Linda, there are no
I mean,
or hours and hours.
There's really no rules. Yeah, there's no rules on length, on how many, even what you want to charge. And it's a 70-30 split. You get 70, they get 30 for doing all the tech and admin and all that stuff. But, you know, no one's getting rich off of this, but, you know, you might make a little money. But the idea is to really teach something that you feel is of value. And for us as a kind of collective to be creating our first core offerings and have enough that we really are starting to have everyone recognize, oh, there's this Aikido in the World thing, you know, area.
Well, you gave some examples like, you know, someone might want to do a video on how to fold a hakama. Well, that's probably 10 minutes at most, isn't it? But it might be of value to some people. They gave an example of woodworking skills, how you might make the perfect tanto or whatever. So it just covers everything, anything that you think you've got to offer with the skills you've got to offer. It could be months worth of course, but still chunked down into bite-sized pieces, or it can be, you know, 10 minutes worth and that's your lot.
Well, Quentin's going to do his first one on leadership. I've decided just to focus on my kind of stress management, stress less, prosper more, kind of hear the Aikido in that. So I've been teaching it for many years, but to put it in this format and to look at how we learn to manage stress. What is stress? How do you manage it? The somatics of stress, somatics of emotional response, emotional intelligence. So that's all going to be in my course.
Anyway, it's time to say goodnight. Thank you for everything you offered tonight. Really, really helpful. I hope that it was enriching for you guys too. It should be a two-way process always. So thanks, and enjoy the rest of your evenings, afternoons, whatever it is that you've got to do. Ciao.
Thank you. Very nice, Quentin. Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Very stimulating.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.